Today I'm reviewing literally the coolest chair I've ever sat on. This is the NxSys Aero from Cougar. And no, before you ask, you can't use it to go zipping around the Everglades.
NxSys Aero, your first step towards efficient cooling.
Hi guys, I'm Matt, welcome to Kit Guru, and this is my full review of the NxSys Aero Chair from Cougar. NxSys or NxSys, it's spelled N-X-S-Y-S. I'm going to call it the NxSys. It's a brand new chair from Cougar that features, as you saw in my little intro, a 200mm RGB fan in the backrest. And that backrest is hollowed out to allow air to flow in and out of it and get to your back to stop you getting sweaty during some marathon gaming sessions. It's got other usual chair features, like it comes with this additional lumbar pillow and this magnetic, that's right, magnetically attaching head cushion. And then it's got the other usual stuff like 3D armrests, different varying levels of adjustability, a class 4 gas lift. It's priced at $399. I'm still waiting to hear about the GBP pricing, but it's around $400, so it'll be somewhere near that, I would have thought. But we'll drop it in the pinned comment down below once we hear back, if we don't hear back, before I finish making this video. Anyway, let's look at it in full detail, see if it's any good, see if it performs well as a chair, as well as just looking quite cool because of the fan. And I'll give you my thoughts at the end. Let's start off with the design. So I want to start off by talking about the thing that more than likely made you click on this video in the first place. The fan that's in the back of the thing. It's powered by a battery pack, which you'll need to purchase separately. It doesn't come with the chair. And then it can be discreetly tucked away in a little compartment on the back of the chair. The battery pack that I'm using is quite a bit smaller than that little cubby hole that it goes in, but I've never heard it rattle, I've never heard it move around. It holds it quite securely in there, and I've never heard it move at all when I've been wheeling about my office. And then that battery pack is obviously powering the fan. That fan sits inside the back of the chair, and Cougar have designed that back in such a way that air can flow easily in and out of the backrest towards your sweaty gamer back. It's the cooling effect you get off the fan is a very subtle effect, and the design does a good job of distributing the air across the whole back of the chair. It kind of feels more like the chair is being cooled rather than the fan is blowing directly on your back. It's hard to explain. It's like sitting on a temperature controlled seat rather than just sitting in front of a fan. The fan has adjustable speed and adjustable lighting, which are both, along with turning it on and off, controlled with the buttons that can be found on the right-hand side of the chair. There are 2 speed settings, either 400 or 800 RPM, and then there are 9 different lighting settings. There's a few different rainbow options, and then there are a bunch of different static colours. That lighting will appeal to younger gamers, I think, but it's also a little bit pointless in my opinion. It can't be seen when you're sitting on the chair. So is it really needed? And it'll just drain the battery pack quicker, a little bit quicker. But like, you can't see it now, I'm sitting on the chair, so what's the point in it? The fan does produce a little bit of noise. Cougar lists the level of noise that the fan's going to put out as 13.2 decibels when you've got it running at 400 RPM and 24.8 decibels when you've got it boosted up to 800 RPM. And I'm guessing that was measured in a controlled environment, because I measured it in my office, and with an ambient noise floor of around 34 decibels, I saw an increase of 1 decibel with the fan running at 400 RPM, and then 27 decibels increase when I was running it at 800 RPM. On the lower setting, it really is whisper quiet. And then on the higher setting, you can hear it. It's not that loud. It's noticeable, but it isn't annoying. It's not to a level where I think I need to turn that down and you can just hear it droning. It's like hearing the fan on your computer. And I do reckon that Cougar could have stuck 2 of these fans in there with dual controls on the side, so you could really blast yourself with air if you wanted to. Moving on from talking about the star of the show, the fan really, the chair has all of the usual features that you'd expect. It's got adjustable height, it reclines from 90 to 150 degrees, it tilts backwards, it's got 3D adjustable armrests, built-in lumbar support, and comes with the head and the back cushions that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to go over all of those in a bit more detail when I talk about my use and how comfortable this chair is later on in the video, but I just thought I'd mention all of the chair sort of design aspects after we've spoken about that fan. So the NxSys Aero is finished in PVC leather across the main seat base and then across the wings of the seat back. The combination of carbon fibre in some sections and then breathable finishes in other sections, and then you've got a kind of diamond pattern on the seat, all really complement each other, and I think this chair looks pretty stylish in my opinion, at least when the lighting's turned off. There are dark grey accented sections near the headrest on both the front and the back, which do go well, in my opinion, with the black overall aesthetic. And when, as I mentioned just now, when the lighting's turned off at least, it looks like quite a mature chair. Stitched branding can be found on the back and the front of the headrest, like most gaming chairs. I don't mind it too much, but I do think it would have looked a bit better with the Cougar logo instead of the word Cougar. I think the logo just looks a little bit more stylish. And I think Cougar must have agreed with me partially on that, as that's what they stuck on front of the removable cushion. So when you stick this thing on the chair, it covers up the word Cougar, and you get, I know that the word Cougar's there small, but I think the overall logo kind of looks like a Thundercats logo. That logo is there instead of just the word Cougar. And speaking of this cushion that I've got on the desk in front of me, it's got the best system of attaching and detaching that I've tested on any chair so far. It's magnetic, which I really don't understand why more companies don't choose to go with magnets for this. It's a little bit puzzling, but hats off to Cougar for putting that in there because it holds very well. It's ridiculously easy to attach and detach, and it gets rid of the elastic strap that most chairs use that hooks around the back of the headrest, and just they put branding there, and then there's an elastic strap that goes around the back and covers it up. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but this doesn't do that. The magnet's really strong as well. You can just chuck it at the chair and it'll get it in the right place. It's like a fun little game. Chuck the cushion at the chair. If you hit it bullseye, it'll just stick to the top of the chair. Moving on to talk about the assembly process and the build quality then, and putting the NxSys Aero together, if I'm honest, was a bit of a pain. A lot of the screws that are needed are already installed in the chair in their threads, and they need to be removed and then put back in afterwards after you attach the base or the arms. It would have been so much easier if they'd just stuck the screws in a box, so they only have to be screwed in once. You don't have to screw them all the way out, put the thing in, screw them all the way back in. It's just double the work. I don't understand why they did that. Other than that small gripe though, the build process was pretty straightforward, and it was not dissimilar to the other chairs that I reviewed and built in the past. The build quality is pretty good on the NxSys Aero. The 5-spoke base is made from steel and it feels really sturdy and well made. The casters that fit into it are 3 inches in diameter. They're made from a hard plastic. They're a bit scratchy on my hard floor, and a softer option would be better for me and anyone else that's got a hard floor. The chair glides and moves around a little bit too much. Like sometimes when I'm sitting at my desk, it'll slide out from under my desk. But if you've got carpet, they'll suit it well. If you've got a hard floor like me, then you'll want something a bit softer. The Class 4 gas lift supports up to 160 kilograms in weight. That's plenty. It's dealt with a large bloke like me with ease. So the armrests, they're all right. The pads are made from a soft material, more than likely PU or TPU plastic, but I couldn't find it in the documentation anywhere. They feel decent quality and they only rattle very slightly, unlike some armrests on some chairs, which sound like they're going to fall apart as soon as you touch them. The height and then the back to front adjustment of those armrests both feel quite solid, but the angle adjustment is a little too loose sometimes, and it can adjust by accident when you lean on the armrest of your elbow. A button to lock them in place. I've said this about the Sihu chair that I reviewed a while ago. A button to lock them in place would have been so much better. Tilting back and reclining back on the NxSys Aero both feel sturdy enough, and it doesn't fill me with fear when leaning back on this chair, which I guess is always a good sign. And sometimes you do that on a chair and you think, oh my God, I'm going. But no, it feels solid and it feels sturdy. The stitching is mostly great all around. The only issue that I found was with the magnetic head cushion. You may be able to see it while it's been sitting on the desk in front of me. If not, I'll put some footage up now for you. It's just a little bit wonky when you look at it head on. It just hasn't been stitched very evenly on both sides. And that is, once you notice and see something like that, you can never unsee it. Every time I look at it, I see it. The internal padding is pretty impressive on the NxSys Aero. It's just firm enough to provide support to your legs and your back and stuff like that, while still having a little bit of softness, so you do feel like you sink ever so slightly into the chair, into the padding when you sit down, and you kind of get that relief, that feeling when you sit down, like when you take your shoes off at the end of the day. You sit in it and it feels comfortable. And speaking of comfort and my use, my experience, and just how I've found this chair over the testing period, I've been sitting on this seat every day for a few weeks now, and I've got some good points and I've got some bad points. Let's start with the good points. The seat is very comfortable in general. As I mentioned earlier, the padding is firm enough that it's supported my legs well, something I've struggled with on seats in the past. The front edge is soft enough that it hasn't caused me any discomfort in my thighs or in my calves or my lower legs. It doesn't feel like it's cutting off the blood supply to my legs at all, which is part and parcel with like setting it up properly. But that soft edge on the front of the seat base really feels nice and squidgy on the back of your legs. The seat depth is 525mm. It isn't adjustable, but it's plenty deep enough for someone tallish like me. I'm around 6 foot tall, and it allows me to sit far enough back into the seat without feeling like I'm perched on the edge of the front of it like some chairs can, or like they can sometimes feel like they're tipped forward a little bit, but this doesn't feel like that at all. And that generous seat depth, when you sit right back into the chair, you feel the lumbar support in the back of your chair, which luckily for me, it's in the right place, because my first negative point is that the internal lumbar support isn't adjustable. And it is quite good, it's firm, and as I said, it's in the right place for me, but that's not going to be the case for everyone. So if anyone needs to adjust it, they're out of luck. And that leads me on to another point. Because that lumbar support is sticking out a bit, it sits me forward, and the back of the chair feels like it's slightly inclined, even when it's in its most upright position. Sitting straight up in the chair when it's locked in that upright position still feels like I'm leaning back slightly. Now, I've got to say, that's more than likely exacerbated by my poor posture, as well as the lumbar support pushing me slightly forward, meaning I have to lean back further to hit the backrest, but it isn't very comfortable trying to sit up straight and have your back pressed against the backrest. I also don't think much of this lumbar/back pillow that you get. It's good quality, it's covered in the same PVC leather as is the head cushion, but due to the internal lumbar support sticking out quite far already, when you add this thing, it reduces that seat depth by too much. At least for my tastes anyway. I found it much more comfortable sitting on the chair without this cushion added. But moving back onto another positive, the fan, that has been very, very useful, especially on some of the sunnier days that we've had in the Midlands recently. It's nice being able to flick the switch and have it cool your back. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very subtle cooling effect that doesn't seem like much when you first sit on the chair, but when it gets a bit warm and you turn it on, and when you're already hot and you then turn it on, you really can feel the difference. I can feel it cool my back while I'm sitting here recording this video. Overall, I feel like the adjustability of the chair is a little bit lacking. It would have been nice to be able to tweak it a little bit more, like adjusting the seat depth and the armrest width. They don't move in and out, they just go backwards and forwards, up and down, and the angle, you can't change the width at all. And I feel like it 100% needs lumbar support adjustment. For a chair that's even got the tiniest bit of comfort in mind or ergonomic design, it 100% needs lumbar adjustment. I've not experienced any fatigue when sitting in the chair at all while working or gaming, and unlike some of the other chairs I've reviewed, there wasn't any period of time where I felt like I had to get used to it or break it in to be comfortable on it. It's felt comfortable from the moment I've sat on it, and almost every other chair I've reviewed has had a little period where I've sat on it, and for the first hour, 2 hours, maybe a day, I've thought, this feels weird, it just feels off, and then I'll tinker with it, and then it suddenly clicks and something feels right. So overall then, and my final thoughts on this chair, overall, I like the innovation from Cougar with the NxSys Aero. It's different, and the fan does provide some genuine benefit to the person sitting on it. The RGB not so much, but I understand why they've stuck it in there. It's going to appeal to some people for sure. I just kind of don't see the point of it. It's generally a comfortable chair that's held up well over the period that I've been testing it for. The materials used all feel good quality. The PVC finish feels soft and smooth and looks quite classy. Not being able to sit up straight is a bit of an issue, and it doesn't feel like a 90-degree angle when you have the seat back fully upright at all to me. The lack of lumbar support adjustability is a pretty big miss in my opinion, and as I said before, any chair aiming for decent ergonomics should definitely have this feature. And finally, I think it has that wow factor due to the fan and the lights, and when you first see it you're like, oh, that's a bit different, I like the look of that. But once that novelty has faded and you've got used to that, it's a pretty decent, pretty standard, yet decent quality gaming chair, with the added benefit of being able to cool you down while you're absolutely destroying in Hello Kitty. That's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like down below if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to Kit Guru to keep up with the latest PC gaming news and reviews. If you go down into the video's description, you'll find links to our Discord server, our Patreon page and our website if you want to check any of that out. And if you want to buy any merch, there's links just below the video. Anyway, guys, I've been Matt. This has been the NxSys Aero RGB fan cooling chair from Cougar. Kind of new, kind of innovative, and I kind of like it. I'll catch you in the next one. Speak to you later.